Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Edan of LightCycleAstrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we are doing horoscopes for all 12 rising signs for the Venus square Jupiter aspect that is perfecting today on Tuesday this week. Now, this is trumping the usual forecast episode that I make for the look at the astrology for the week ahead, because one thing that is very, very interesting about this particular aspect between these two planets is that due to certain movements of Venus right now in her retrograde, she will be engaged in a square with Jupiter for 33 days. So let me go ahead and pull up the real-time clock, and instead of me just trying to articulate this and you trying to picture this just all in your head, I want to show you, give you the example here of why this is. So Venus is retrograde here in Leo at about 15 degrees. And you can see here, if I bring the clock up to Tuesday, I'm recording this on Monday night here, but Tuesday, August the 22nd, here's the perfection of Venus making that square back to Jupiter in Taurus. Well, watch what happens as I advance the clock forward by days now. Venus going retrograde, but she is nearing the end of her retrograde portion of her synodic cycle. And by the time we get to right around September the 2nd, Venus is stationing now. She is preparing to turn direct, or to stop and then reverse course and head back into direct motion through the zodiac. So she does this within this 3-degree range of engagement to Jupiter. She is slowing down. So she hits the square on her way to her station. And then because she doesn't go, outside of this 3-degree range, it's so close to the place in the zodiac that she stops. She stops within the square aspect to Jupiter. And then if we roll the clock forward, it takes her a while to get going. And she is going to essentially, by the time she picks up enough speed to gain enough separation from Jupiter, 33 days has gone by. Now, one very interesting thing, though, that is just incredible about this particular aspect is that look at Jupiter at the same time that Venus is stationing to turn direct. Jupiter is stationing to turn retrograde. That is so unique and special and important. So we're doing horoscopes today because I am honestly hoping I get some comments, and I'm going to, do my best to provide some delineations and some house topics for, each of the 12 rising signs where these two planets are falling in based on your rising sign. But I really hope that over the next 33 days, we get some comments in on the channel, and I can sort of see how this particular astrology aspect functioned out there, because it is so unique and unusual to get this kind of an aspect where one benefic is recovering, coming out of sickness, or getting ready to bring back benefic or positive attributes to that house, while at the same time there is a dominant Jupiter that is getting weak or losing the ability to bring benefic things. If you think about Jupiter, one thing that Jupiter tends to represent is that center of order. So what keeps life remaining within some kind of cohesive thing that isn't just dog eat dog, chaos, law of the jungle kind of craziness? It's really Jupiter. When you think about all of the keywords that we get for Jupiter, we get things like law, we get things like morality, justice, the courts, we get generosity, trust, faith, hope. We get optimism. Sometimes we get arrogance, and we get, of course, the biggest keyword that people know Jupiter by is expansion, right? Things are going to get bigger. But these are things that we want to get big, like our bank accounts, or the number of cows that we possess. That would be like in the ancient world. Or Jupiter is also related to fecundity, especially when he is in a very fertile sign like Taurus the bull. This is a Jupiter that has the ability to bring pregnancies. It's like baby making Jupiter is, in Taurus. So we have this connection to eroticism, to good fortune, to inheritance. So these are all things that we associate with Jupiter. Jupiter is earlier in zodiacal order. So one thing about this aspect is that Jupiter is the one that is dominating the exchange between the aspects. So essentially, in other words, Venus is sort of, the one saying, okay, we're going to do whatever you want, Jupiter, because you're the boss in this situation. So what do we see where we have Venus recovering? We get things like there is a sense of social ability, or there is reconciliations in relationships, or there is grace or harmony or peace, or style that is returning, feeling beautiful, or enjoying pleasures, or Venusian things are making a recovery. They're coming back online. We're going to have a more positive experience with what we love, our relationships, our relationship to the things that we like and enjoy on all levels. That aesthetic, artistic, creative, beautiful archetype is improving, recovering, coming back out into the world as a reborn Venus, while having to take orders from a Jupiter that is potentially losing faith, potentially losing order, potentially losing justice, potentially losing law, maybe becoming corrupt, losing hope, losing trust, losing faith, losing generosity. When we see planets turning retrograde, one way that we can see the effects of that planet shifting or changing is that what we for instance, with Jupiter, what we had believed in now is called into question. Are we sure that we really believe in this or that? Are we sure that this really is the right kind of justice in this or that? Or is this really what provides the central cohesive, glue that holds good things together? Is this really the generous spirit that we encounter with things that are seemingly fortuitous or lucky, or that we provide to other people that is generous or lucky or fortuitous to them? Knowledge, wisdom, teachers. This could be a teacher leaving. Like if you are in beauty school, or you're in cosmetic school, this could be like all of a sudden Jupiter turns retrograde and you no longer have the teacher that you loved to learn from, or something like that. Or if you're an artist or anything like that. So a very interesting nuance with this particular aspect. Now what I want to do is let's go ahead and we'll get into the horoscopes, and we'll put Aries back onto the ascendant. So we'll just keep in mind this nuance between the two planets as we go through. So imagine that there is one planet that is making a recovery. That's Venus. For Aries, that is going to be in your 5th house. So things recovering in your 5th house could be relationships with children. It could be your relationship with being able to enjoy life, just all of the ways that you enjoy life. There may have been something while Venus was going retrograde in the 5th house that sort of was you weren't able to fully enjoy something, or there was a pleasure or joy that was maybe removed or tapered off or something like that, but maybe there was a restriction or something. There could be now a reversal of that, where Venus is going to provide something enjoyable to life once again. And it could be purely recreational. It could be hanging out with your friends at the bar. It could be whatever it is that you have a hobby in. If you fix motors, or like I know in Aries rising that loves to tinker in his garage fixing weed whackers and motors and things like that. It could be anything that you derive pleasure, and it could be any place that you get pleasure from. Now, one thing that's really interesting, though, is Jupiter is pulling something back in the house of money or resources or finances, or spending and saving. So that's really interesting. Could there be, like, for instance, you are spending more time enjoying life, but you're making less money because you're not working as much, or something like that. There could be something like that. There could also be, more importance on children at the time, that it is sort of the same dynamic where either you have to invest in children, or you're losing money because you are spending on children, or you're just spending time with children and not working, or something like that. But there is a dynamic that has something recovering in the house of children, creativity, joy, pleasure, that potentially has a connection with food or gambling or sports, or just creative projects in general, and any place that you take joy, a bar, a movie theater, restaurants, baseball fields, anything like that. That's all the purview of the fifth house. So something is recovering and getting going again in the fifth house within those topics, but something is tapering off. There may be some reversal of some benefic amount of money that had been there, and maybe that's somehow getting ready to shift or change the dynamic of the income, or how you spend, or how you save. Now, sometimes though, normally the way I would interpret a Venus square Jupiter from the second to the fifth would be something like, hey, if you go and buy a lottery ticket, this could be like a winning ticket. There could be just a stroke of luck. But this has the quality where you could end up feeling like you're on the verge of winning at the casino, but it just doesn't pay off and you lose the money. But you have fun doing it. I guess Venus is stationing and turning direct again in the fifth house, but you may not get the winnings that it feels like you should be. That lucky thing in you is telling you to keep placing the bets, but it might not work out. So be careful of indulgence with this particular aspect, pursuing too much pleasure that is sort of out of balance of what needs to happen in the other areas of life, stuff like that. Just the basic Venus Jupiter stuff. Overindulgence in sex, food, gambling, recreation, entertainment, romance, creative projects. Just make sure that those things are somewhat kept in balance as we go through the square over the next 30 days, because there could be a tendency for money to sort of be decreasing or being withheld while the pleasure ratio is going up and up and up. So this is like, you got to be careful of buying something that you just don't need, that is costing a lot of money, or something like that. So that is what I have if you are an Aries rising. So please let me know in the comments if any of this is landing for you, or ways in which you particularly notice this happening between these two houses. That would be great. But let's go ahead now, and we're going to roll and put Taurus on the ascendant. So this is placing Jupiter that is stationing to turn retrograde in the first house, and making that dominant square to Venus, who is stationing to turn direct in the fourth house. So this is a very powerful place to have this aspect happen, because these are angular houses. We got the first, the 10th, the 7th, and the 4th were typically thought of in the ancient world as the really active houses. You have the house of the self, you have the house of the career, you have the house of the marriage or relationship, and then you have the house that is connected to the heredity of the family, the very central topics we're talking about. So as Venus is the ruling planet, or the ascendant ruler of the first house, if you're Taurus rising, this is almost like existentially connected to home and identity. So with Venus in Leo making that recovery, it's like there could be a reintegration of identity that has something to do with the home space, or has something to do with heredity. That is what I think this could be connected to. It's like many years ago, after my father passed, he was adopted, and we could never get out of him from his adopted parents. He never wanted to ask my adopted grandpa anything about the night that he was adopted, because he was adopted out of the hospital system, and there was no record. So my adopted grandpa was the only person that had any idea what my dad might have been in terms of like ethnicity or heredity or anything like that. So we didn't know. We just were guessing based on his looks. And so I did the 23andMe DNA kind of rabbit hole to try to figure that stuff out. This is a lot like that. This is like Venus is beginning to integrate something that may be connected to the father, the family, the home, heredity, ancestry, where your lineage comes from, your genetic history, or something like that. Because this is a personal thing, because Venus is your ascendant ruler. So there has been kind of like almost like a, a, a an integration or a process that has been probably unfolding that has some connection to your roots as it relates to heredity or family or parents or father or something like that. Now, this could, outside of that, this could have something to do with the place that you live, the home, the family. So we could see anything like, getting settled into a place that you've recently moved to. If you're living in a new place or something like that, Venus stations and turns direct, and now it's like, okay, you're unpacking the boxes, you're starting to decorate the home or something like that. So it could have this dimension of like the actual physical space, or it could have the dimension of like who you are in terms of your heredity or your past. So Venus has been working in those regions as it's gone through the retrograde cycle here, and now Jupiter is impressing some kind of I would think there's almost like a loss of faith or a reversal of beliefs that you may believe about yourself, or something connected to your identity. So if there's like, if you've gotten a new job or you've moved to a new place, has something happened that has caused kind of an identity moment to sort of shift or change, or it's like on the verge of maybe going through a little bit of a change, and that is somehow connected to the recovery of Venusian things in the home or family. So it's like, I guess a real easy example would be like, let's say you've moved and you're setting up your boxes and you're in a new space. So it's like a clean palette, and you bring out some of your old stuff, and maybe you see some of that old stuff and you realize, this isn't me right now. I need new stuff. That's kind of like Jupiter beginning to pull something back in the first house, So I would look for identity and things at the root, things at the center or foundations of family or who you are or the actual place that you dwell, being affected by something that is very personal or something that you identify with. Something is shifting or changing around these two very powerful angular houses here. So that is what I have if you are a Taurus rising. Okay, now let's go ahead and roll the real-time clock forward, and we'll put Gemini on the ascendant. I live with two Geminis, so Gemini rising, so this has been really interesting. My partner is one of them, and Kate has had Jupiter now in her 12th house for a while. So as many people know that have watched the channel, we have a newborn baby. She is doing really, really well. She is so cute. It's like painful. She's just, I hope she doesn't get any more cute, because I don't think I could physically handle it in my heart. But Kate has been doing an amazing job at raising this baby, mostly on her own because I'm so busy working, and a lot of women get postpartum depression. But she hasn't done this. She hasn't seemed to really let anything break her spirits, even though taking care of a newborn baby is a lot of work and you don't get much sleep, and it can be really frustrating and challenging and difficult and isolating. So a very 12th house kind of place. But she's done an amazing job, and she has really been revamping some routines, daily kinds of routines, which is very third housey. So if you are a Gemini rising, there is a recovery that is happening in the third house of some kind. The third house is connected to the places around the roots of the home. So whether that is the grocery store that you always go to in the neighborhood, whether that is connected to people that you see all the time that you sort of gossip with or exchange, just small talk with or something like that, whether it is the social media platforms that you are always on, that is kind of a third house place too. But it's sort of the local environment, and that can include some very ritualistic spiritual things as well. It was said to be the place of the joy of the moon. So in ancient astrology, for instance, if you had planets in your natal chart in the third house, they might think that you could be a good priest or priestess. So there is this almost divinatory, ritualistic kind of place that the third house connects to. And it's different from the ninth house. The ninth house would be the words in the holy book, whereas the third house would be the lighting the incense and walking around the stupa, 20 times or whatever it is that, that people do in Buddhist culture. It's the rituals. So it's the daily rituals. So Venus is making an appearance. She is recovering. There is some aesthetics, beauty, creativity coming back to the everyday environment. There could be a recovery around people that are in the everyday environment in terms of relational wise, like sisters or siblings or friends that you've known a really long time that feel like they're family members. Or if you're a teacher of children, it could be that there's a creative burst that is coming into you, and you know how to organize the curriculum. Or if you're a writer, the moon was the the things that always circle sort of the mental images, the mental ideas, the mental habits, all of those habitual, regular, everyday environmental things that sometimes go by unnoticed. There is a recovery, there's a blossoming of beauty or aesthetics or creativity that's happening in that space that might have fortunate outcomes for relationships to people that were always around. So that's a positive thing. But somehow Jupiter, which has been sort of alleviating isolating things or making isolating things more positive. Like, for instance, my wife, instead of getting postpartum depression and having kind of like a really terrible time taking care of a newborn all by herself, she has been really positive about it. Now, there could be a little bit of a tapering off of that. So this could be where Jupiter stationary turn retrograde in the 12th could be something like you have to be really careful about indulgence. Things seem to be going harmoniously in the everyday world. So be careful, of getting off work that you've done to make routines be reestablished or integrated, like just eating too much or, indulging in pleasures that are detrimental. That's Jupiter in the 12th in Taurus. It's kind of like it's either indulging in things that are not good for you, that feel good for you, or it's actually getting out of the negative spaces in our mind, our subconscious, or away from people that are not great for us or something like that. But Jupiter has been sort of holding off the chaos of the 12th house or the isolation. You know what I mean? Jupiter has been like kind of the bastion of positive mental, affirmations in areas that are sometimes difficult. So sometimes sickness can come in the 12th house. Sometimes frustration, isolation, loneliness, corruption can come in. So sometimes this is with other people too. There could be, like, for instance, somebody that has been really helping you a lot, that has been a teacher, that has been providing some kind of knowledge or refuge. Sometimes you can see Jupiter stationing retrograde in the 12th be an omen that that person may be going through a hard time and may actually be providing things to you that are not beneficial any longer. So a reversal of beneficial things is about to occur in a place that's kind of difficult. So you have to watch out. And the 12th house is difficult because it's kind of a blind spot. You almost don't see it for what it is. It was said to be the place of enemies and bad spirit. So it's a time, I guess, to just try to be a little bit more vigilant about your the hard work, I think, that has been happening, or the reintegration of some kind of healing for yourself in the everyday environment with health routines or habits or rituals, or how you are organizing the space and how you're operating within the regular environment that you are in. That, I think, is really hitting a stride, and it's gonna improve. But you have to watch out that there aren't things that creep in that could almost seemingly derail that effort. That is sort of what I would say for this particular rising sign with these two combinations of planets in these two places. So let's go ahead now and we'll roll the real-time clock forward to put Cancer on the ascendant. And this is going to bring these two planets into the second house of money and finance, resources, investment, spending, savings, our livelihood, and the 11th house, a place that was connected to almost like fairy godmother spirits or guardian angels or benefic helpers, people that have that want good things for you and are helping you achieve worldly success or attain worldly status on some level. With Jupiter in the 12th, if you're Cancer rising, if there have been benefactors or teachers, mentors, people within groups or associations that you belong to, people in the work environment that have just been kind of on your side or in your corner or, helping you out, there could be something here, interestingly enough, that is like an omen for a tapering off of that. It's like a mentor that no longer is able to teach you all of a sudden, or maybe it's like if you've been going and hanging out with a group of friends, or you've been frequenting a organization of some kind, it's like somehow there might be a pulling away of that, or like the glue is coming unglued with the people that you're somehow have been surrounding yourself with. Or if it's like in the workplace environment, like the glue is sort of coming undone with the clique that you hang out with, or something like that. But it has something to do with the social environment and the people in that social environment. Maybe the glue is coming unstuck, or there's about to be a shift or change around who is really important in that space. And then there's also a recovery within the financial house. So maybe, like I have certainly had friends in the past who I've really, really loved, but I gotta say it was always damaging to my wallet. I try to be a pretty generous person. I try to help out people when I can, and I wouldn't consider myself a very stingy person, although I wouldn't also consider myself a fool. But could there be a friend or a social dynamic that actually shifts or change, and there's somehow or another almost like an improvement on your financial situation because of that? Sometimes being social is quite expensive. So there are shifts and changes around these two areas where you have social things, the people within social dynamics, whether at work or in organizations that you belong to. And then there is some kind of recovery in the financial sector. So that is a positive. Now, it could be that there's about to be a period of time where you begin to question certain wisdom or knowledge, and there may be things that you learn, or you go through a process of learning something new, or rethinking something that you have been thinking on before, and that could potentially lead to some financial gains, as Venus is in this square to Jupiter as well. So that is if you are a Cancer rising. I would love to hear any Cancer rising stories out there on how this is shaping up for you between the 11th and the second house, because this is kind of an interesting combination here. Okay, let's go ahead forward now, and we'll put Leo on the ascendant. And if you are a Leo rising, these two planets are angular for you. We're having Venus make that recovery within the first house, and we're having Jupiter in the 10th house stationing, preparing to maybe lose some kind of benefic outcome within the topics of career or the everyday kind of work or practice that you've been engaged in. So this is also a pretty angular and important, interesting place to have these two planets making this aspect for about a month at a time. But let's start with Venus. Venus is making some kind of recovery. So there may have been a reworking of some kind of identity, or let's say that you have been in the process of starting a new job, or maybe within a different you're in a different position within a job that you've had, or something like that. This could be where you begin to integrate your identity to what you've been doing, right? And we all go through these changes of identity, and especially when it comes to what we have to do to make money and earn a living. You know, if you get a job as a salesperson and you've never been a salesperson, that your identity will begin to change, because you're going to be reading the books, listening to the tapes. You know, that's a whole rabbit hole that maybe, you know, somebody has never gone down. But that's the way a lot of times that the work environment, the 10th house, really informs the personal identity. Quite often is, you know, just quite simply, you know, things like if you're at a party and somebody says, "Hey, I'm so and so. Nice to meet you. What do you do for a living?" You're gonna become identified almost, you know, solely as like, "Well, I'm this, or I'm that, or I do this, or I do that." Right? Like me personally, I'm an astrologer. So that's a part of the identity. So Venus is making a recovery. Some kind of component within the identity is getting integrated by this point back into the self. And that is a positive thing. There are probably things that you have discovered during the Venus retrograde that you love or like about yourself. There could be kind of this feeling where you have like the wind at your back, and you're like, you know, I know that I am valuable. I know that I'm beautiful. I know that I have self-worth, and I love myself. That could be something that is important to you, that is coming back into some kind of integrated whole self kind of picture within your identity. But Jupiter is losing faith somehow in the 10th house. So I wonder if this signifies that as identity is becoming more integrated, this could be somebody that says, you know, I have done this for work for a long time, but I don't feel like that's who I am. I'm not supposed to be like a salesperson. And that, for me, I had been a salesperson before. But the reason that I'm not a salesperson today, even though I was pretty successful at it, is because the top salespeople in my company, they were basically liars and cheats. And after a year, I figured out that if you really want to sell a lot, you kind of have to be that person. And I didn't want to be that person. This could be something like that, where it's like maybe you're realizing that you don't want to be what you do for work, or something like that. So there could be a loss of faith, something shifting in the workplace dynamic that is informing the first house, and there's like a tension there. That's another possibility with this particular aspect between the 10th and the first house. But of course, it could be if you have somebody in the workplace, or if there's been somebody that has been mentoring you, has been teaching you, has been looking out for you, has been having your back at work or in a professional setting. That person could be retiring or leaving, or there could be some situation that comes up where they're just no longer to somehow give you that support. That could also be a factor here as well, which maybe makes you a bit more independent, which is coinciding with maybe this reintegration of some part of your new identity or something like that. So basically, we're talking about, you know, things that are really in the professional sphere or occupational sphere, and sort of who you imagine yourself to be. Those two things are sort of shifting or changing. The identity is becoming more robust and healed, while there may be something that is about to come unglued, so to speak, in that occupational space. So I'm not saying you'll lose your job or anything like that, but there's something that is sort of becoming less sticky, that potentially has been providing some kind of benefit in that particular region or topic of life. So that is what I would say for if you are a Leo ascendant. Between those two house topics are becoming more prominent right now. Over the next 30 days, that is potential themes that are coming in for you. Let's go ahead now and put Virgo on the ascendant here. If you are a Virgo rising, This is placing Venus in the 12th house, making a recovery there. That's a pretty good place to have a recovering Venus in the 12th. But this is being informed by Jupiter that is preparing to station retrograde in the 9th house. So this is really, really interesting. The thing that I tend to get for this is if you have Venus recovering in the 12th, there is a couple of different ways that you might read that. First of all, the positive way would be that you may be overcoming some kind of physical illness, some kind of mental illness, some kind of this is like somebody that's physically or mentally recovering from something that maybe has been a challenge. Or it could be coming out of a depression or coming out of a bad relationship. It could be being able to finally overcome something that has been detrimental in terms of a philosophy or belief, especially because we see Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde in the 9th house. So I would say that the glue that is coming undone in the 9th house, it could have been something like, for instance, if somebody is in a long-term relationship, you have a Venus-ruled 9th with Jupiter there, and you've been traveling back and forth a lot or something like that. This could be a time where you say, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. I don't know if I want to keep traveling. What I really want to do is go back to school or get a degree or learn something. So there could be a reversal of this place that gets you closer to knowledge or God or some kind of expanded experience of life, right? The 9th house tends to be those places that are connected to God, connected to divination, connected to knowledge or learning. Jupiter is really, a positive planet in the 9th house because Jupiter has very similar symbolism, right? Jupiter has a connection with religion and knowledge and law. So the 9th house and Jupiter pair very, very nicely, but there's a shift in whatever 9th house topic is being represented for you in your life. If you are a Virgo rising, there is a little bit of a shift in that. If you're traveling, there could be less traveling. If you've been involved in some kind of academic program, there could be kind of the glue coming undone where that isn't so much a focus, or somehow there is less of that. Something like that. And with Venus making a recovery there, we have to watch out that we don't become indulgent with pleasures that are basically going to lead us down a path that isn't good. Drugs, drinking, alcohol, all of those things are dangers to watch out for with Venus in the 12th house, but Venus could also be overcoming or recovering from something like that. For instance, I watched that documentary, is it Painkiller, about the Purdue Pharma and the the Oxycontin. Man, that was riveting, but so sad, right? I won't spoil it, but Venus recovering. It's a recovering alcoholic or a recovering drug addict or somebody that could be recovering from a health issue or something like that. Another possibility is if you are recovering and there has been some body of knowledge that has been helping that recovery, there could be a time where you find that maybe it isn't everything it was supposed to be. So there is kind of a change in beliefs that has an effect on things becoming improved in places of recovery or health or relationships that have been detrimental or something like that. And then there is also healing that has been trying to reintegrate into your subconscious or into your physical body somehow with Venus in the retrograde portion, now recovering. So those two things are in play and in some kind of dynamic right now. Okay, now let's go ahead and put Libra on the ascendant. If you are a Libra rising, this is going to move Jupiter into the 8th house, and Jupiter is making a square to Venus in the 11th house. It's as if on one hand, there is going to be, or there is about to be some kind of an improvement within social dynamics. In terms of groups that you belong to, associations that you belong to, the work social environment or something like that. It's like you've become integrated into maybe a different social dynamic or a new friend group or a new, you're a new member that you've become integrated into. it's like somebody that starts a new job, and there's that awkward few months or beginning where people don't really know you well enough yet. This is kind of like that moment where you get sort of past that awkward I'm the new person kind of thing, and everybody knows who you are by that point. They know a little bit about your personality, and you're sort of integrated into the group setting. Venus stationing to turn direct in the 11th is, for me, I feel like has been a process of that thing, shifting or changing in some kind of social dynamic. With Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde, it could signify that the benefits that have been provided by other people, whether that's our spouse, whether that's our friends, whether that is even the potential paycheck that we're getting, or the tax return, or the loan that we've gotten, there could be shifts or changes around being the recipient of those resources from other institutions or people or partnerships. So I know that sounds a little bit scary, but it just means that, for instance, like let's say that you've gotten a new job and you've gone through that awkward I'm the new person phase, and now you're being reintegrated and people know who you are at work. But maybe your partner, because you're working, maybe now your partner says, you got your own money now. I'm going to use some of the money to pay for this instead of doing what I used to do, which is give you this portion or whatever, something like that. And so there's a little bit of like a tapering off of that, but things are going good at work in the social sphere. That could be one example. There could also be, of course, a reversal of a loan. If you have been trying to get money from a bank or something like that, this could be a time where the bank seemed like they were about to give it to you, seemed like things were going well, but all of a sudden that money isn't available, or you're finding out that you're not getting the loan. That could also be one possibility of Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde in the second house. So there is all kinds of ways that this could come into play here. There could also be, with Jupiter in the 8th, we get inheritances, right? Sometimes Jupiter in the 8th will signify, hey, guess what? There's going to be some money that's coming through from an inheritance or an estate, or some kind of organization or something like that, a trust. Jupiter stationing retrograde is like, you're not getting your check for a while. It's, or you're not getting your check at all, or something like that. Or the alimony has dried up. The ex is, lost his job and isn't able to pay you alimony or child support, or the child support is late or something like that. So these two houses, the 11th and the 8th, may not be directly connected. They may just be happening simultaneously, where it's like, I'm not getting my child support, but I'm not the new person at work anymore. So the two different things that are seemingly connected are happening at the same time. So those are the areas of life that I would look for, with Venus stationing to turn direct in the 11th and Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde in the 8th. Some of the house topics for this pairing of planets, you might say. Okay, now let's go ahead and we'll roll the real-time clock forward to put Scorpio on the ascendant here, my own personal rising sign. If you are a Scorpio rising, this places this aspect of planets within angular houses. We have Venus stationing to turn direct in the 10th, and we have Jupiter getting ready to station retrograde in the 7th. This could be something recovering within the workplace, within the professional sphere, within professional reputation, or things going smoothly at work. There could be more enjoyment at work, or some kind of aesthetic style that is just somehow making the workday flow better, or something like this. Something is recovering at work that is making things flow more smoothly within your occupation, or what you do day to day, in terms of a practice or occupation. But simultaneous to this, there is glue that is coming unstuck. There's Velcro that is wearing out in the 7th house. So if something has been on the verge of becoming complete, or if there's been an engagement, or if there has been a legal matter, or if there has been something happening with your partner that has been really fortunate, there could be a tapering off of that. So it's interesting because, Venus has gone through the retrograde. Venus retrograde is usually about relationships, although not always. And with this one, Jupiter in the seventh house, it's like relationships have probably been going pretty smoothly. So there may be a little bit of a mixture here where you get, hey, things are going better at work, but things are a little bit more difficult in my relationship. That things aren't quite so optimistic. Not that everything is going to fall apart, but like for me personally, as a Scorpio rising, my poor partner has been dealing with a newborn baby while I have been at work, but I got the whole appendicitis, and so I wasn't at work. So for me, the Venus retrograde was me not being at work. Venus turned retrograde and my work time decreased, right? Now I've gone through the recovery phase, and just like Venus is recovering, I have recovered, and so I'm back more at work now, which might make it a little bit more difficult on my relationship, or my partner might have a harder time with me gone. Something like that is kind of informing the dynamics. So there could be things that you've been working to complete them, or they're like becoming finalized, projects that have becoming finalized, things that seem like they're about to be done and signed off on. So this could be like the sale of a house, the building of a house. It could be getting married. It could be planning a wedding, something that feels like it's like there's some success, or something in that area has been really, really like it's about to happen. It's happening. The deal is closed. We've shooken hands. The seventh house has that finality to it. Jupiter stationing retrograde in the seventh could be a signal that the deal was almost signed, but now the other party wants to rethink the offer. Something like that, unfortunately, could be the signature of this. So I would watch out for that. General potential for relationships to not fall apart, but just not be quite so as happy-go-lucky as they were, or as like charmed, as it has been. The glitter or the charm might wear off a little bit with Jupiter stationing retrograde in the seventh. There may be a little bit more difficult. Your partner may be a little bit more grumpy or something like that. But hey, you're having a better time at work. So that is what I have if you are a Scorpio rising. If you are a Sagittarius rising, we are getting this square happening between the ninth house and the sixth house. We have Venus stationing to turn direct, making a recovery within ninth house matters. There is an aesthetic here that is on the verge of being integrated into some kind of philosophy, some kind of higher knowledge, or some kind of larger perspective. So Venus retrograde in the ninth may have been about a process of rethinking or relearning some kind of higher perspective, whether that is how you connect to God, whether that is how you connect to something spiritual or religious, whether that is how you connect to something divine, or just some higher code or ethical value that you try to live your life by. It can be the code, right? It's like the Three Musketeers, it's like the moral code that you live your life by. Something about Venus retrograde probably has been a process that has been about, what is my code? If there has been relationship things that have been happening with Venus retrograde, it could be like, I always imagined that I would be treated this way in a relationship, or I always imagined that this is the kind of relationship that I would have, or something along those lines, where it's like my moral fiber is telling me that this is the types of things that I love, that these are the types of things that are important that I want for my life, as a guiding philosophy. So philosophy religion, beliefs may have been shifting or changing and are now making a recovery. There may be new belief systems that you're trying to integrate into your moral code at this time, or things that have to do with how you relate to other people or how they relate to you, or the kind of love and relationship that you're in. Like, are you in a casual relationship, and is that what you want? Or are you in a relationship where you need something more, and you're starting to understand that you're not living by your moral ethos because you're not doing those relationship things as you see you should be doing, or something along those lines. With Jupiter in the sixth making that square, it makes me wonder, the sixth house was associated with conflict or obstacles or strife. It's possible that there has been something difficult. There may have been obstacles, but Jupiter may have been providing some kind of almost like protection against them, or some kind of like barrier, where it's like you sort of know that these things are hard, but you've somehow been protected by them. That could be going away a little bit, where it's like now all of a sudden something is like the Velcro is not as sticky. Things aren't being held together quite so tight in a positive way. Things get difficult. Obstacles come in. Things that have alleviated potentials for obstacles or strife or conflict are slowly leaving or weakening, or something like that is happening. And this may be a time where, if you want to live by your moral ethos, or in alignment with whatever it is that you truly believe is the right way to live, this may be a time where, if you have to integrate something new as a belief system, you're going to have to work out those conflicts. And those conflicts might be coming in as a way for Venus to say, we know what we want, and we know what we don't want, and let's get on with it. And if we have to rip off the Band-Aid, if we have to maybe go through a little bit of conflict or strife for us to get in alignment with what we really, really believe is what we want, let's just get it over with. There could be something like that. Now, on more of a practical level, Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde in the sixth house could be a tenant that moves out if you rent homes. It could be a mentor that has been teaching you in like an apprentice program. It could be like a positive environment just in the workspace. If you work in like a veterinarian office or something like that, there could be kind of like you don't get as many hours at work, or something along those lines. So there could be really practical things with this. There could be, unfortunately, maybe if there has been some advancement in health, or in in like physical health, or like an injury, this could be a time where, I hate to say it, there might be a relapse of health on some level, as Jupiter prepares to take back some of the positive things that may have been a barrier, or may have been providing some kind of growth around things that have been, you battling something in the health realm or something like that. Now, sometimes Jupiter in the sixth can be about doing things that are unhealthy in a big way. Like if you are, if you like to party or drink or do drugs, Jupiter in the sixth can sometimes be about like the exuberant, overindulgent lifestyle that is really, really not good for you, and sort of leads to health issues or injuries or strife or something like that. Jupiter stationing retrograde may actually be a good thing. This may be a time where it's like all of a sudden you realize, I don't need to be indulgent in this way. I don't need to be so reckless, or I don't need to be so lustful in this particular way. And maybe that helps you get back in some kind of alignment with a moral principle or a moral position that you would like to live your life by, but have had a difficulty doing so. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move the real-time clock forward, and we'll put Capricorn on the ascendant. So if you are a Capricorn rising, we are seeing the aspect between Venus and Jupiter happen in your 8th and 5th houses. This is such a almost like mysterious place to have this particular aspect, because normally when you have Jupiter and Venus in square, especially between the 8th and the 5th, you're going to come to the very safe delineation and say, you got to watch out that you don't borrow too much money, doing something that you love to do. If you want to create something, if you want to enjoy yourself, if you want to go do something pleasurable or have fun or date or anything that takes money and that is in the realm of just enjoying your life, those 5th house kinds of realms, going to parties, going to restaurants, going to concerts, going to baseball, going to casinos, anything and anywhere that is just purely for enjoyment, entertainment, recreation, all of those 5th house types of things, plus children, generally it's going to be like with Jupiter in there. It's like, don't overdo it. With Venus in the 8th, you're going to really want to borrow some money so you can have this really lavish time. You're going to go into debt. You're going to spend too much. You're going to spend too much of somebody else's money, or, something like that. But what's really interesting is that Venus appears to be making a recovery. So if there had been like if you had been trying to get a loan or get some money, it may have seemed while Venus was retrograde that it wasn't going to happen, or you weren't sure if you could get the loan or something like that. With Venus stationing to turn direct, it's almost like you get the message that like, hey, you're approved, or all of a sudden you're going to get alimony or child support, or you've gotten an inheritance from your father, or something like that. With Jupiter stationing retrograde, it's so odd, because it's like something is some benefit that has to do with entertainment, enjoyment, recreation, or children is becoming less cohesive. There's less glue there sticking and holding everything together. There's less of a moral center that is what you believe in, or some philosophy. What do you believe about your children? What do you believe about how you enjoy life? All of those things are sort of about to shift or change and be called into question. So you might be calling into question matters of children, or matters of enjoyment or recreation, or anything that you enjoy as like a hobby, or maybe if you have been now this could be a good thing. Sometimes when Jupiter goes retrograde in the 5th, it could be about, well, I used to drink a lot and now I don't, or I used to gamble and go to casinos but now I don't. So very interesting dynamic. Things improving with the resources that are connected to other people, and potentially philosophical higher knowledge and wisdom and moral understanding shifting or changing around what you believe about joy, pleasure, entertainment, children, recreation, sports, gambling, just indulging in things that you like to do. That is almost becoming lessened or weakened, or it's shifting or changing. With Capricorn rising, having Saturn as your ascendant ruler, Capricorns can be quite serious, responsible, hardworking. So I think for Capricorn rising, the 5th house is always a really important exploration to connect with, because it's, you don't want to work too hard. You don't want your life to only be about the duty and responsibility. There has to be some balance about how you enjoy life. So this could be an important retrograde with Jupiter in the 5th that gets you closer to some wisdom or understanding of what really is important, that balances out that work and enjoyment, dynamic. So I think that is an interesting thing. But then at the same time, there is a recovery potentially with partners, money, or job situation, with gaining inheritance from a father or from a family estate, or making some shared resource more beautiful, or getting the loan, or something along those lines is improving and is about to become more positive, I should think, with Venus turning direct in the 8th house. Okay, so that's what I have for Capricorn rising. Now let's go ahead and we'll move to Aquarius and put Aquarius on the ascendant here. If you are an Aquarius rising, this is an angular placement for both of these planets in aspect to one another. Venus is stationing to turn direct in the 7th house. And we have Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde in the 4th house. This is an incredibly interesting dynamic that is happening if you are an Aquarius rising. I should think with Venus stationing to turn direct in the 7th house, there could be topics of relationships or marriage or things that are becoming finalized. If something, it has been on the verge of becoming like signed, sealed, and delivered, the case becoming resolved, like the legal situation becoming resolved, excuse me, the legal situation becoming resolved, the case becoming closed, your marriage partner doing really well at work or getting a promotion, the wedding going forward after maybe some obstacles, or making a proposal, or deciding you want to be in a long-term relationship with somebody that you've been seeing casually. These Venus retrograde topics in the 7th house are moving towards some kind of improved and probably finalization. Like it's something is becoming improved or recovering, and it's probably moving towards something that is becoming integrated in, signed, sealed, and delivered in some kind of final judgment, or it's like it's done, it's resolved, here it is, we've made up. Well, my wife has let me move back in, something like that is about to become probably more positive in the area of relationships, but also of partnerships or of business dynamics or legal situations or matters. While at the same time, there is Jupiter that probably has been providing some center of cohesion around the home or family. That center of cohesion is about to become a little bit less sticky, a little bit like the Velcro is becoming a little bit less able to just hold everything together. Some things may be shifting in the home or family, especially with things that have been positive things. So it's not to say that things will just be terrible at home all of a sudden, but might you have to move, or might the place that you have been living that you have really been enjoying, somehow there's something that you have to fix that makes it less enjoyable for a while, or you have to move to another place, or maybe there's a death in the family or something like that. But these two planets in these two places are speaking to these very core places of home, family, heredity, sometimes people passing, sometimes people being born in families, or sometimes us buying property or losing property. This could be the sale of somebody's property that they've been working to finalize, and now Venus stations and turns direct, and they finalize the sale of the property, but now they have to move, something along those lines, where something is becoming unstuck or unheld together at home or with the family or with property. And while at the same time there is something improving that, or is becoming finalized within the area of legal matters or relationships potentially. So that is something that I see for Aquarius. If you are an Aquarius rising, my dad is an Aquarius rising, and there has been a lot of construction at home. So it might be that the construction at home begins to taper off a little bit, or slow down, or stop altogether with Jupiter turning retrograde. And this might give more time to the relationship, or the relationship might improve because there's less stress with the construction or something along those lines. So you sort of have to play with the themes here, but I think that hopefully provides some kind of example that makes it easy to do. So if you are an Aquarius rising, those are some of the particular house topics that we're getting into: relationships, things becoming finalized, legal matters, partnerships, marriage, and home, family, and potentially like death, birth, heredity, things that are really connected to the home or family with Jupiter there. Okay, so if you are a Pisces rising, this square is happening between your 6th and 3rd house. We have Venus stationing to turn direct, bringing improvement or recovery to 6th house matters. And we have Jupiter stationing to turn retrograde, informing Venus by a dominant square from the 3rd house matters. That is kind of a tricky delineation to make, I'll be honest. So one thing that we do see with Venus retrograde in the 6th, if the 6th house has been about, if Venus retrograde in the 6th has been about some kind of health issue that has cropped up or flared up for you, Venus stationing to turn direct after a retrograde in the 6th house could be about the recovery of something that is flared up for you in a health matter. Or if there has been a difficult time in relationships where there's conflict or fighting in the relationship, Venus turning direct in the 6th could be making up and coming to some kind of integrated, this is how we're going to talk to each other. This is how we understand our relationship. This is my love language. This is your love language. I know what to do when you get mad, or stuff like that. If you have been working really, really hard on a project, or there's been something that has just taken a lot of labor, Venus making a recovery in the 6th could be about coming into, it just feels easier to do the exercise routine. You're sort of coming into your stride with things that are difficult. There's a grace, or there's just the ability for things to be smooth somehow in areas of life that are difficult. That's a positive thing for Venus turning direct in the 6th, but it's being informed by a Jupiter that is taking some cohesive, beneficial thing away. There's some weakening of something cohesive and beneficial in the regular everyday environment that is almost being lost. That's really, really interesting. I'm not sure even what examples that could relate to, honestly. The only one that I can think of is if, for instance, let's say that you have been working really hard to improve your health on some level, or you've been trying to, there has been a flare up or a health issue. Jupiter taking something good away in the everyday environment. Sometimes Jupiter can be indulgent. Sometimes it can be erotic, especially in the sign of Taurus, a Venus ruled house. So it might almost be like always having those good things around me, always having that indulgent, luxurious, lustful types of pleasures, right? Jupiter can sometimes represent the lust or the fertility of pleasure in Taurus in the 3rd. So it's like surrounding your everyday environment with the things that you really love, like the food that you really love, the wine that is just the best, just really enjoying the everyday thing. Having a little bit of that, the routine of those, those pleasurable things, potentially in abundance or to excess in the 3rd, having that sort of taper or weaken might be the reason that Venus makes a recovery within a health matter or issues. So for me, I know, like, if there isn't ice cream in the refrigerator, I'm not going to get the inflammation in my body and my knees won't hurt the next day, that sort of thing. But Jupiter in the 3rd is like, this is just my routine. I'm going to have this pleasurable thing all the time and lots of it because it's fun and this is life and I want to enjoy life. Having Jupiter in the 3rd can really be about, let's do everything big and grand and indulgent, right? Sometimes in Venus's sign in the 3rd. So that's one example that I could see. It's almost like in the case of health, could something be recovering because there isn't so much indulgence in the routine? There could be other ways that you could see stuff in terms of relationship. mm, if there has been a lot of activity day to day, if Jupiter running through the third has been about, man, there's just been a lot of social stuff happening, a lot of social media activity, a lot of friends coming over, a lot of maybe traveling to see people or something like that. Maybe, doing a big project that has been really, really active, or just a general like bigness of activity could that activity sort of lose its swell and taper down a little bit, and maybe improve your relationship because you have more time to spend with your partner or something like that. It could affect projects that you're working on really hard in that way as well. So those are a few possibilities, but essentially we're looking at the areas of life that are really fundamentally about the everyday environment, and Jupiter sort of unsticking something that has been present in the environment that seems like it's a really positive thing, that seems like it's a pleasurable thing perhaps, or an erotic, or something that brings lust or fertility to the everyday environment, beauty on a big scale, creativity on a big scale, philosophy, busyness, social activity. All of that bigness is sort of shrinking a little bit. And there may be the ability for Venus in the sixth to recover some hard work that needs to be done in a project, or strife or conflict in a relationship, or overcome a health issue by, bringing more grace or ease to, doing something like, I really enjoy going out and doing that hard exercise routine, like me personally, I don't do this anymore, but because my knees hurt, but I used to really love to jog 2 miles every day in a park. Could this be about like, yeah, I'm getting back into that now, if I were a Pisces rising, something like that. So let me know if you are a Pisces rising, ways in which you might see this combination of planets between the 6th and the 3rd. I would really love to hear some examples of that. Okay, well, that is what I have for all 12 rising signs. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you guys got something good out of this. Please let me know in the comment sections if anything resonates, or let me know if it doesn't. That is perfectly fine and acceptable too. I'm learning, and I'm a student of astrology just like everybody else out there. And it's always just interesting to see the ways in which the gods and goddesses manifest and signal based on their heavenly bodily movements in the sky. It's just endlessly fascinating, which I think is why we all love to learn and experience astrology. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave in the comments anything you want to share, and I'll be back again Monday with another astrology video. Take care and have a great week. Bye for now.